Every monument in Rome tells a story, but few are quite so tragic or quintessentially Roman as that told on the Arch of the Moneylenders. This arch is rarely seen by tourists, as it lies well off the beaten path, and next to the side of the 7th century church of San Giorgio in Velabro. But it is without doubt the most fascinating arch in the entire city of Rome. Built in 204 AD, the first unusual thing about it is that it wasn't dedicated by the Senate and people of Rome, SPQR, as was customary, but by the Argentari et Negotiantes Boari, the bankers and cattle traders of the Forum Boarium. This is not the only trace the Argentari have left in Italy. Their name lives on in southern Tuscany's Monte Argentario, once home to the bankers who financed the Roman Republic through the Punic Wars against Carthage. The arch preserves a highly ornate visual program. On the right-hand frieze, you can see the Emperor Septimius Severus and his wife, Julia Domna, enjoying a lovely day out at the sacrifices. The Emperor is completely in his element as a symbol of virtue and imperial piety. Facing this sacrificial scene is a similar relief, depicting the young prince Caracalla. Your eye is drawn not to the figure of Caracalla himself though, but to the aggressively chiselled out space once occupied by another figure, Caracalla's wife, Plautilla. In 205 AD, the year after the arch was dedicated, and 7 years into Septimius Severus's reign, Caracalla had the head of the Praetorian Guard, Plautinianus, put to death, indicted on charges of treason against the emperor. Whether there was any truth behind the charges, we'll likely never know. What we do know is that Plautinianus' daughter, Plautilla, was soon to share her father's fate. Caracalla first had Plautilla exiled to Sicily, before moving her to Lipari, a remote island in the Aegean Sea. There she spent the last of her 6 years in exile, subject to increasingly brutal treatment, until in 211 she was strangled, on the emperor's orders. The bankers had their work cut out for them, being ordered by Caracalla to remove the image of Plautilla and her father, which had once occupied the sacrificial scene beside and beneath the figure of Caracalla himself. But they are not the only figures missing from the arch's inscription and visual program. Another conspicuous absence is the emperor's brother and co-ruler, Geta. Septimius Severus died in 211, leaving the rule of the Roman Empire to his 2 sons, Caracalla and Geta. From the beginning of their joint reign, these brothers had a very strained relationship. Their mutual mistrust meant that they always surrounded themselves with armed guards, in case either brother made an attempt on the other. Caracalla, however, ultimately proved the more devious. The historian Cassius Dio tells us on December the 26th, 211, Caracalla asked their mother, Julia Domna, to organise a private meeting in her apartment so the 2 brothers could discuss a truce. Geta entered the apartment unaccompanied, as promised, but as he did, the guard Caracalla had posted outside rushed into the apartment and attacked him. The scene Dio describes is tragic. Sensing his death, the 22-year-old Geta ran to his mother for protection, but she was unable to help, and in his helpless mother's arms, Geta was hacked to death beneath a flurry of blades. Following this cold-blooded act of fratricide, Caracalla ordered for all possible traces of Geta to be destroyed. The Arch of the Moneylenders is one of the clearest examples of Geta's Damnatio Memoriae, damnation of memory, not just on the frieze, but on the arch's inscription. If you look at the top line, you can clearly see where Geta's name has been removed in an attempt to erase any trace of his existence. But there are other examples too. Many inscriptions and images of Geta were erased across the empire. His portraits were chiselled out. Even coins bearing his profile were removed from circulation and melted down. Caracalla was later told that his crime could be mitigated if he declared Geta a god and introduced him to the pantheon of the imperial cult. The emperor's response was chilling. Let him be a god, provided he's dead.